to you guys so you have that as a takeaway. Marketing. What's marketing? One of the things that I really like to talk about when you talk about what marketing is all about is we're storytellers. Marketing is nothing more than telling a story. But it's telling a story in a way that not only does it create impact, but it also creates action, right? So when you're telling a story, we want to not only create a promise with that story, but I think one of the biggest things that we have is when you're telling the story, it's not just about marketing or about recruitment, into the organization. It's really about ensuring that you have the engagement. So if there's anything you take away from today's session, I want you to take away 3 E's. And this is really, I think, the easiest way that I kind of describe, when I do all these different programs for McDonald's. If you have these 3 E's in mind, you will be very successful in recruiting, membership, into your local PTA. One is engagement, right? Any program that you do has got to have engagement, because that's the way that you're going to get people to join you, right? So that's the first E, engagement. 2 is education. A PTA's role should be much more than fundraising. Would you guys agree with me on that?
Yes.
Much more than fundraising, because this is the way that you're going to be able to garner much more participation from people that necessarily may be turned off by numbers. Being in marketing, I'm not a numbers person, so I'm turned off by numbers. I'm more about, tell me the role and the purpose of what this is going to garner in terms of results, right? Numbers are important, don't get me wrong, but you'll have people that will be engaged in that area of the plan. So that's the second D, right? Education. The third is execution. So you've got a great plan to recruit, but without the execution piece, it's not going to be effective, right? So, are you guys with me?
Yes.
Engagement, education, execution. So, when we talk about marketing strategy, if you have those E's down, you can be a marketing expert like no other. So, with that said, let's get started. The agenda here will be broken down into 3 main categories. Okay, first and foremost, I'm going to talk to you guys about, what we have in common, because I'm sure, when you saw the agenda in today's breakfast, you asked yourselves, McDonald's? What can I possibly learn from McDonald's that will benefit, my involvement with my PTA? So there are a lot of commonalities that I want to ground us on. Second is, obviously, the role of why we're here. How can I help you with the strategies that we use at McDonald's, for you to integrate those, in your own organization. And then the engagement that I talked about, that's critical. Whenever you're telling a story, you want to make sure that it's an engaging story that people are going to, be attracted to. Okay, so in terms of the commonalities that we have, what does McDonald's and the PTA have in common? We have a structure, just like you guys do. You guys have a national PTA, you guys have a state PTA, and then you've got your local PTAs, right? McDonald's, being one of the biggest brands in the world, has got to have a structure for us to be effective. So, similar to a lot of organizations that really focus on making sure that, you guys, one of your roles is to drive membership. Our role is to bring customers into the restaurants. And without that structure and that process, and those 3 E's, we wouldn't be able to bring in 28 million customers each day in the United States. So that's a lot of people that you need to make sure that are happy, that are engaged in what you do. And even from a global standpoint, we have 70 million people that are fed every single day worldwide by McDonald's. So that creates a huge, really responsibility for us to be able to, ensure that we've got the process in place and the plan in place to be able to keep every single one of those customers happy. PTAs are no different. You guys have to make sure that you keep your membership engaged, because if you don't, you're going to lose that membership. And you know that there's that bell curve, that you've got the engagement at the beginning and people kind of taper off. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then one of the other things that I think is very critical for both of our organizations that we have in common is the fact that while we may be a much broader network, we've got to make sure that, even though, we have a lot of responsibilities and a lot of guidelines or directives or whatever you want to call them, we need to make sure that what we're doing is really relevant to the local marketplace, where we are. And that's no different in terms of being able to connect. So the engagement piece, and a lot of these pieces, when we talk about engagement, is being able to have that emotional connection, right? So there's a lot of conversation about when you're telling the story, you want to make sure that that story is not only relevant, but that you're making that connection with the people that you want to recruit. So it's much more than just the numbers component, but always keep in mind that in order for you to attract and retain, you need to make sure that that emotional connection or that bond, is a part of your plan. For us, it's very important because it's great that people are coming into our restaurants, but do we want customers to come into the restaurants once? No, the business has to be sustainable, right? So we want to make sure that people are leaving with a great experience to the point that they, one, will either tell a friend or two, come back. And that's why I think that's part of the success, that we want to make sure that that storytelling that we're talking about is engaging enough that you're able to make that emotional connection, with the people that you're trying to recruit. So let's talk about membership. When it comes to the marketing strategy, the foundation of the strategy is really the people, right? At McDonald's, we pride ourselves in saying that we're a people company that happens to be in the restaurant business. Because without the infrastructure of the people, there would be no, restaurants, there would be no Happy Meals, there would be no Big Macs, right? So the people piece is such a foundational element of your marketing plan that you've got to understand who they are. So what I'm going to walk you through are 4 specific members that you guys have and that we share. And this gives you a little more insight into when you're trying to have that emotional connection, when you understand who your members are under these 4 buckets, you'll understand what are going to be the priorities under your plan to be able to recruit and be most effective in keeping the members once you have them in. Does that make sense? Awesome. Okay, let's talk about advocates. Advocates are the ones that we all love. Why? Because you don't have to go recruit them. You really don't. They're already there. Not that I'm saying that I want you guys to, go off and put your PTA guidelines on your arm like this guy did. This is actually not Photoshop. It's an actual customer that ended up being so happy with loving McDonald's that he printed the receipt on his arm. I don't want you guys to do that. But the advocate is really kind of the cornerstone of the ideal PTA. That's what you want. You want advocates. But the question that you should ask yourselves is, within your PTA, how many advocates do you really have? And what are you doing as a PTA leadership to keep them, right? Because if you're not keeping that advocate you're going to lose, right? And that is your number one cheerleader in ensuring that the recruitment piece is alive and well, right? So the advocate is a huge cheerleader for your organization that you should identify them. And the reason why I'm going to be going through these 4 is a lot of times we never look at developing a marketing plan against the basis of the people. And that's critical, understanding who they are. Bless you. Okay, so we've got the advocate. The occasionals. This is the core of your membership. And we would be lying to each other if we felt that my PTA is so great that I've got so many advocates and very little occasionals. Who would agree that occasionals are the majority of your membership in the PTA? Yeah. Oh, yeah. The occasional is really that person that comes in, is excited at the beginning, writes out a check, and walks right out the door after they write the check. Or you're having a cool event, they come to the event, and you never see them again. Okay, so there's a good news and bad news here, right? The good news is that they've got the potential for you to make them an advocate. Okay, but since they're your core, you need to understand that you've got to keep courting them. You can't take them for granted because if they leave, they won't come back. So understand that the occasional is really the one that needs to be